Thank you for taking the time to review the HomeFront software solution. This particular demonstration goes through the different aspects of the HomeFront solution as it relates to production home builders, with added emphasis on the integration to Sage 300 construction real estate. For additional general high-level overviews, there are additional YouTube videos that you can follow as well. Within this flowchart diagram, the four fundamental areas are going to be covered within the software system itself. The product definition process that takes place for production builders takes place within the Precision Builder module, where we go through and we define our models, elevations, and options. We define the level of cost breakdowns that are necessary, and in doing so, we can choose all the different types of floor plans that are offered, floor plan specific options, as well as the level of detail that we want to track our costs to. In this particular example, we've got a floor plan referenced as a Lexington base model. It consists of a level of detail that's consisting of items that are both quoted or lump sum bid, as well as items that are unit price driven, where the quantities are determined and the prices are driven based on a unit rate, with preferred vendors identified based on the communities where we may make this particular plan available in as well. In addition to being able to configure the different floor plans that we want to be able to offer, we can also input different dimensions for each particular plan. By dimensions, we mean by room location as well as by subcategory for the different options. We can control the different types of values that we want to be able to identify for each room location within this particular plan. This is particularly useful when we start dealing with option selections by room, especially in the case of flooring, where we want to be able to control the number of square feet, for example, that exist within a given room for, say, selections of hardwood, selections for carpet, whether the options are priced by square yard or by square foot. The appropriate dimension will be retrieved based on the unit of measure identified on the option and the subcategory that the option pertains to. You'll see this here shortly. In addition to being able to build assemblies that consist of item details such as you see here, you can also create assemblies that are based upon other assemblies. So for example, I may want to be able to choose a plan that consists of multiple assemblies plus some additional items to help maintain or create varying product offerings that are based upon existing assemblies that have already been built without the added need of ongoing maintenance and maintaining that information in multiple places, where we can see the total cost of each item as well as the total for each assembly plus any additional items that supplement those assemblies as well. This goes a long ways in terms of being able to reduce the amount of maintenance that's required. In order to get a product library into production, we have to be able to produce a sales pricing worksheet so that we can feed our sales team with that information. All of the details that are created can be published within a different worksheet. We can identify all the different plans that we want to be able to roll out, the different communities that we're going to roll them out into, and the price points at which we want to sell them. We can go through a variety of different pricing analysis where we can type in a proposed price and let it calculate what that translates to in terms of expected profit margin or cost markups. The cost itself can actually be determined based upon a time frame that you use as a costing basis. Because in a pre-sale world, the price that you give the customer is a locked-in number, yet you haven't begun construction yet. So being able to factor in potential cost fluctuations into the basis for your costing becomes a very useful tool, where we can go through and from our vendor pricing standpoint, we can establish a forecast model that's based upon a percentage adjustments relative to current actual costs that we have for each of our vendors. So for example, if the price of framing material was to increase by 5% over today's costs and hold the line for the balance of the year, what would that do to my numbers if that was to play out? without actually adjusting my actuals, I can forecast into the future what that might look like if those price adjustments took place, effectively building in a contingency value for the purposes of this sales price calculation, so that we're not faced with margin erosion the moment we publish a price and then a price increase comes in from our vendor. This allows you to take that into consideration. And we can go through that exercise as often as we choose to prior to publishing this worksheet. Upon publishing this worksheet, we're effectively releasing those prices to the sales teams, at which point any quotes that they prepare are going to be based upon those new numbers. With that, if we were to look at the sales application, the users over there are capturing all of their contacts, converting those contacts into sales opportunities. As those opportunities get a little more serious, they're going to start to produce quotes for those people. And ultimately, our goal is to be able to convert a quote into a sales contract as well. So let's go ahead and create a new quote for an existing contact that's in the system. I'm going to pull up myself here. An opportunity can consist of one or more contacts together that are going to form part of this total sales opportunity, which will also come into play when it comes to contract preparation if we need to have additional signers or signatories on the contract itself. We can have a primary, a secondary, and additional contacts if necessary. And we could also reference a realtor if there's a realtor in the mix as well of who's associated with this opportunity as well. If we have an email address for the people and they've got a social media profile, we can also pull that information up and you can have access to that information and be able to access any publicly shared information so you can learn a little bit more about what their people's interests are and things of that nature. For the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to focus on the quote preparation and contract ratification. When we create a quote, we have two different types of quotes that we can produce. One is a pre-sold home where the lot and the plan have not yet been chosen, and others where we have spec homes that are already under construction that we want them to be able to select from what we have for available spec homes. For the sake of this demonstration, we're going to focus on a pre-sold home, and each quote gets a description. We can choose from our available lot inventory. We can have lot inventory maps based on the communities that we're in, where we hover over the different lots to figure out which ones we want to choose from. Or we can do a build on your own lot or a custom lot if necessary. When it comes to choosing your plan, we can go through and choose what we want for different plans. You can load a full image gallery for each of your plans. You can search by price, number of bedrooms, number of baths, number of square footage. Once we select a particular plan, it then takes us through where we can start to make additional selections such as options. Options can be chosen from a general option pick list, or you can produce what we call a selection wizard that gives you the ability to control the flow of those selections, where you can organize it into a logical step-by-step process if you need. For example, we may want to go through and give them access to a few different structural options, where we may want to offer them adding a bonus room over the garage, extending the master bedroom, or adding a screen porch, for example. We may also want to go through and start choosing flooring, where we can choose different types of flooring or hardwood selections, for example, where we may be choosing maple site finished hardwood. And there's various rooms that we can offer that, and so maybe we're going to offer that in the den, in the dining, and in the living room, 3 different room locations that we want to place that, and maybe also in the office. By choosing these different selections, we're also essentially building up our quote list as well. So our options that we've chosen are being accumulated over here as well without the need to have to go through and pick them from a separate pick list. And then we can see the different values of what it's going to cost based on the room locations that we've chosen as well as the different options that we've added. We can go through this exercise of making these selections. We can produce the printed purchase and sale agreements themselves and add supplementary documents if necessary. And then we can go through and submit that document for review and even signature. If for those users that want to integrate with DocuSign, that information can be sent for signing, where we can go through and route that through the DocuSign process, which allows them to go through and track all of the digital signature routing as well. Any customer deposits that we may want to collect can be documented here as well. So if we want to be able to capture a $1,000 deposit and we want to collect that today. For the sake of this demonstration, I've logged in as an administrator so I can go through and simulate what the process would look like if we were to take a quote through to contract. Of course, a sales agent does not have the ability to approve their own sales. They would normally have to go through and convert this to a pending sale, which would then get routed to the sales manager, who would then review the contract or the quote. Upon acceptance of that, then they would go through, that person would convert it to a sales contract, and it would go through the approval loop in that fashion. We're going to go ahead and give this thing a closing date. That's 12/15/2018. And I'm going to go ahead and ratify this contract as well. Upon ratification of the contract, this signifies a job start that we have as well. And that information is routed through to the back office system at the point of contract acceptance. Over in the estimating and purchasing module, the inbox starts to accumulate with those newly ratified sales contracts. If we were to go through our community list and find the job that we just created, which was Pinnacle Pines 18172, we'll select that job, at which point it's going to go through and retrieve all of the details that support all of the selections made by the customer. It will then open up and show us a breakdown of everything that was on that initial contract. The base model, the option to add the bonus room over the garage, adding that screen porch, adding the flooring by room location. All of those things are being added in there automatically for us, where all those details are being retrieved, where you have the opportunity to then review that information, make any adjustments to the necessary budget values, and generate that budget so that we can post that over into accounting. Now, as far as accounting integration is concerned, all of the vendors that we create within Sage are automatically retrieved and read into HomeFront from the accounting system. Vendors originate from accounting, as do cost codes, tax groups, GL accounts, things of that nature. So there's not a need to maintain it in two separate places. The source of that comes from the accounting. So, and information flows back to Sage from HomeFront in the form of budgets, purchase orders, completed, approved purchase orders, and accounts payable invoices, as well as settlement closing, revenue recognition, and closing cost adjustments as well. For the sake of this particular demonstration, we're going to focus on the budget creation, the purchase order creation, and the accounts payable approvals as well. So we're going to go ahead and generate this particular budget for the entire job, and we're going to let it go through and produce that budget. It's going to lock in those numbers, and for those users that want to be able to lock in a number and not allow any adjustments to the budget, we can go ahead and treat that as a finalized budget. And this has an important effect later on, which I'll show you here shortly. Once a budget has been finalized, no additional adjustments may be made without going through a change order process. For the sake of this particular job, the budgets have been produced, but we've not yet issued any purchase orders. So let's go ahead and review the purchase order side of this job. When we do that, we toggle between budget view and purchase order view within the same job. The view of the information can be slightly different, where we don't necessarily want to focus so much on what was part of the original base plan, what were in the individual options. We're now focusing on what goes on the individual purchase orders, and do we want to issue those purchase orders in stages or groups. In this particular example, I've got a 3-staged release, followed by one that really never gets released because that's budget only items that go on the budget but don't really go on a purchase order. So they're kind of hidden at the bottom. And if we look at one of these ones at the top here, let's pick on the excavation guy for a moment. Because we know from the time that a budget's created and the time that purchase orders are being produced, let's say, for example, in this case that someone's done a site review and realized that the amount of fill that's required is in excess of what's been allowed for. So they may make an adjustment prior to issuing the purchase order to adjust for that. In this case, we're going to add an additional $500. And in doing so, because we've finalized our budget and the amount that we've input is greater than what was originally budgeted, it's prompting us to give a reason or an explanation why the excess monies are being committed to that weren't part of the original budget. So we're going to choose from our list of variance codes that have been set up, and we could choose that. This will go through and identify this as a site conditions variance, and we're going to go ahead and create this group of purchase orders with that. It will warn us if any insurance expirations have taken place. It'll warn us if there's any over budget situations, as we have here. Gives us an opportunity to stop prior to generating, or we can proceed. I'm going to go ahead and commit both stage 1 and, for the sake of this demo, stage 2 as well. And because we've produced both a budget and purchase orders, all of this information needs to be posted over to Sage. So we're going to go ahead and go through and review the budget posting process. So we're going to post these new budgets that we've created. So here we've got this job that has not yet been posted to accounting. So we're going to go ahead and send this over to Sage. And upon completion, it's going to produce the purchasing journal that's created within Sage and give us a confirmation that the budget had been received successfully over in Sage. The budget confirmation report is presented, gives us a chance to confirm that, and we can go through and also go ahead and post the purchase orders. This can be done kind of in a batch process as well. So this particular job here, I'm going to go ahead and post all of these purchase orders over to accounting. The purchase order import confirmation report is produced as well. If we were to go over to Sage to review that information, we can pull up a profit summary inquiry, which shows us this particular job, the amount that's being estimated, the amount that we've committed to, any variances that we've raised within the purchase orders, and our actual cost to date, at which point there aren't any at this point. We can drill onto that job, see all of the cost codes and the breakdowns for those, as well as the items that have any variances on them. We can drill into that, at which point we can see that we've got that site conditions variance that we had issued earlier. Next in the process, now that we've raised a purchase orders, we've issued a budget, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a schedule for this job so we can start to move the job forward. We're going to go ahead and choose the template that best represents the needs of this particular schedule, and we're going to go ahead and give it a project start date of August 28. It's going to produce the critical path for this particular schedule. It's going to retrieve all of the vendors that are associated with performing the tasks by looking up who we actually utilized on the jobs themselves. Now that we've got a schedule produced, let's see what we can do with that information. We have enough information on hand to do a variety of different things. For example, we have a budget, we've committed to some costs. It'd be nice to know what our cash requirements might be. So we can use this information from the scheduling details to produce a cash flow report. But it will show us our deposits that we were expected to receive, our closing costs that we expect to receive in December on closing, and for now, what are our cash requirements based on our costs, where we can see trends over time of all the monies that are going to be going out. And then we can see what sort of cash requirements we have going forward. Very useful information. The same information that we've got from the schedule is also useful for guys out in the field who are running those jobs. Now the guys in the field have access to field tools that can be accessed from their mobile devices, whether it's that be an iPad, some other tablet, or just even their mobile phone, where they can go through and review all of the details that go into a particular schedule. Schedule of jobs, where we can see this particular one here is the one that we were on earlier. And when we select that job, we have access to all of the details on that job, all of the tasks that are being performed, which ones are also approval points. So for example, if I was to complete this task, because there's purchase orders connected to that task, it's going to ask me, do I want to approve those for payment or not? So in this case, the survey PO is available to be selected and approved. So I can go ahead and mark that as approved. And I can also go through and complete additional tasks as well. So let's say, for example, we've pinned the footings, and we want to approve those purchase orders as well. So it gives us a list of purchase orders that we want to approve. And I'll complete another task here as well. At any time, they can also preview the purchase orders as well if they choose to. So go ahead and approve that as well. The act of approving purchase orders for payment essentially creates a listing of site approved invoices which build up over in the HomeFront payables module that shows all of our site approved invoices that we've created. The purchase order number by default becomes the invoice number, where we can then see all of the details that go on to those particular items. And then someone on the accounting side can then review those particular purchase orders that have been approved. They've been approved by someone on site. If they need to, they can go ahead and make adjustments, simply open them up, make any edits that they maybe want to do. If they want to, they can put it on hold for someone else to review. They can move it as a pending state, which needs to be secondarily approved, or they can mark it as approved and ready for posting. It's kind of up to them. If they're satisfied with all of these details and everything is lined up, they can simply go ahead and highlight whichever ones they want to be able to post and right-click on that and post it over to Sage. At which point those invoices are going to flow over into the Sage Accounts Payable module, where they can then be processed further for final check writing. And so we can go ahead and review that confirmation report at any point. And we can see the results of the accounts payable invoice postings. Now that we've posted that information, let's go and look at that over in Sage, where we can see the budget, the committed, the actual costs that have accumulated to date. This concludes the overview of the HomeFront software in Sage 300 integration. We invite you to visit our website at homefrontsoftware.com. Contact us for more details.